I'm Josh Evans, and I love to help businesses build the right culture within their organizations so they can be more profitable. Do you want more engaged employees? Do you want your company to be more productive? Well, I'm going to show you how to do that. And I'm going to share with you the tools that I've used with hundreds of companies varying in size from 60,000 person conglomerates down to 5-person teams. So get ready and join me so we can build the right culture for your business. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to my podcast. I'm Joshua Evans, and you've got the Corporate Culture Show. I've got a very special guest with me today, and I'm just very honored and appreciative that she would share her time. I want y'all to welcome Sharon Lechter is here today. Sharon, thank you so much for joining me.
I'm delighted to be with you, Joshua.
Well, fantastic. You know, years and years ago, just to give everybody a rundown, I had read several books that you had co-authored, and they were the bee's knees, and they really helped set me on this trajectory. And years later, as I started working through the career that I have now, I had the honor of meeting you at an event, and I actually got to introduce you onto the stage, and it was one of the highlights of my life until then, because I can't believe that this woman who you seemed kind of like this fictitious character, right, that had written these books and had worked on stuff.
I'm real.
Oh, and you're so nice too. You're so personable, which I love about you, and you seem to be so open, and your only goal has been to share the knowledge with people, to help other people bring themselves up. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the project you're working on now?
Well, absolutely. For those of you watching or listening that may not recognize my name, I helped build the talking book industry for children, and then I started the Rich Dad Company and grew that for 10 years and wrote 15 books in that series. And then my most recent association has been with the Napoleon Hill Foundation, which was really cool. And I've been working with them since 2009, wrote 3 Feet from Gold, Outwitting the Devil, and Think and Grow Rich for Women. And about 5.5 years ago, I lost my youngest son. So even though most of my career had been hard driving, running, it kind of stops in your track when that happens. And so that was December of 2012. And I really kind of went on autopilot. Like, I was fortunate that I had established a significant career. So a lot of business just kept still coming my way, and I was still working hard. I just wasn't the driving force that I always had been, driving to be number one, living my legacy and creating maximum impact. So about a year ago, I started thinking about retiring. I got a little pushback, and I think I got pushback from my son from above saying, get over it, get back in the saddle. And so I've launched this new initiative, and for me, it's playing big again, but the initiative is called the Play Big Movement. Be number one in your field, live your legacy, and create maximum impact. And I'm doing this because I want to invite all of you to come along with me, because I'm sharing the things that I'm doing, my good things, my learning opportunities, so that you can also emulate what I'm doing and save yourself the trials that I'm going through. But understand, if you're going to do something, why not do it the best you can? Become the authority in your field, and that allows you to create maximum impact. And certainly when we think about legacy, most of us think about when we're gone. Don't wait till you're gone. Do it now so that you're creating the greatest impact. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm going to have a new book, and an online course is going to be live very, very quickly, very soon. About the first part of the course is really for people who are financially broken, to help them get to break even. And then the second section of the course is to get from break even to financially free. And that's through Playing Big. And so I invite everybody to come along with me, and you can find out more about it at SharonLechter.com.
Perfect. Well, and I love that idea of playing big and becoming an expert in your field. In fact, one of the things that I remember, and I wrote it down because I was looking through the notes, the first time I heard you speak was at a Habitude Warrior conference in Houston. And you said, don't be an expert at something, be the expert at something. And it blew my mind. And I was like, wait a second, hold on. Be the expert. I'm the expert, not I'm an expert. Because when you're the expert, it implies that you have worked hard, that you've pushed yourself to the top of your field, to the forefront of everything that's going on. And I love that. I love that. I mean, that's such a neat story of you going through this season in your life where you obviously had to mourn, and I'm so sorry about that. But to get that nudge from him to get out there to help other people is just a phenomenal thing. What do you think for the average person that's working a 9-to-5 job, that's sitting there at their desk? What would your advice be to them so that they could start playing it big, so that they could stop accepting, we'll call it mediocrity, in their life. What is your suggestion to them, Sharon?
A lot of mediocrity is actually complacency. We get to the point in life, and if you think about it as children, we are very creative and curious. We build forts out of pillows and blankets, and our life, we go to school and we're playing with blocks and crayons, and all of a sudden we're taught a certain amount of conformity. And sometimes that conformity pushes out our creativity and our curiosity to the point where we get our career, we get comfortable, and then we get complacent. And what happens is we have a crisis, our life is thrown into chaos, and how we get back to get out of that chaos is becoming curious and creative again. And so you may have a very successful career and you may be doing the 9 to 5 and that may be keeping you happy, but is it building wealth for your family? Are you becoming financially independent? Because your job is your personal financial statement. That's really your personal business, is to build assets within your personal financial statement. So you may be very happy in your job, but start focusing on how you're using the money. It's not what you do for your paycheck, it's what you do with your paycheck.
Ooh, I like that.
Are you taking those monies and investing them in your family, or are you letting it flow through your fingers and never to be seen again? And so with every paycheck, you have a choice. Am I going to flitter it away, or am I going to invest it in my future?
Well, I want to come back for a second. You talk about the creativity of youth, right? And how children, they want to play with everything. They enjoy everything. They really take things on. In fact, I literally built pillow forts with my sons yesterday. Because what do you want to do for Father's Day? And I said, I'm going to build pillow forts with my sons. And so we did, and it was great, and I loved it. But I agree. I think creativity has been systematically taken out of the way that most people work on a day-to-day basis. I love to be creative. In fact, check this out. I was playing with Legos today, this morning, to be creative. Well, Sharon, what do you do to be creative, to keep your fire going? I mean, you're obviously fired up just to help other people become financially free and to really live bigger lives. But what's something that you do to kind of re-engage, to be creative, and to kind of awaken that spirit more in yourself?
Well, typically, sometimes it's hard, particularly if you're type A individual, because you don't ever take time to quiet your mind. And you really need that, because your imagination needs fertile time and fertile opportunity to grow and to be creative. And so you need to have that quiet time, that rest, so that your mind can really trigger the imagination and have that creative juices. But also to think about your environment. It's hard for me to be really creative at this desk because I have so many things that I have to deal with. And so this isn't my most creative space. When I'm writing, I run over to San Diego where I can see the ocean, or I go up to our ranch. I go to our ranch because it's like you see this incredible gift of God, this beautiful country, and you realize that you're this big and the world is this big, so your troubles kind of go away. And so allow yourself to be in the right environment and give yourself the time to allow your imagination to work.
I love that. And I think environmental changes can be huge. I know for myself, some of the most introspective moments and some of the most large epiphanies that I've come to have been when I'm not closed in an office or in a building of any sort. It's usually when I'm outdoors or doing something active or letting my mind wander, right? Do you ever find that, especially for those sorts of moments, that it's important to kind of occupy your physical body with something in order, I mean, because obviously people talk about the aid of meditation, right? Doing something like with your hands, like building something or taking something apart or playing with some sort of a fidgeting tool to let your mind wander. Do you ever find that as a necessary thing for people?
I think that is probably to the individual. Certain things, might be very well be reading a book, just allowing yourself to escape into something totally non-business related is one. Some people can escape that way and have that mental rest. Other times it's doing a jigsaw puzzle, or as you said, playing with something with your hands, or riding a horse, or all of those things, and try out different things to find out where, when you finish doing something, is your mind at rest? Because that's what happens. So many of us, we're driving. And even when we have a small win, we don't take time to celebrate. We go next. And that's part of that driving type A personality. And we need to celebrate the little wins so that we can really sit back and go, we accomplished this, yes. And allow yourself to rebuild your confidence and gain that momentum. And even by slowing down a little bit, you actually speed up the results.
No, I love that taking pause to actually realize the small accomplishments that you've made. I think everybody's focused on the horizon where they're trying to head. And the problem is you'll never reach the horizon, but you failed to look back at how far you've made it from where you started. And so few people take time to reflect on those small wins. I think small wins are a huge thing, whether it's any small win that you can imagine. Oh, that client finally got back to me, or, oh, I finally, became a middle manager of this organization, or I finally got my first rental property, or whatever it might be. Those small wins need to be celebrated because it's gonna build your steam, and as you said, momentum for you to do the next larger thing, and then something even bigger than that. And so
you talk about company culture, and that's one of the biggest things when I speak to companies is, they might have weekly meetings where people are saying what they're working on and what their goal is for the week, but add at the beginning, what were my little wins? Everybody has a little win, and maybe it is just a client called back, or you ended up making 3 or 4 extra outreaches. But by highlighting the little wins, then those goals seem more attainable, and you bring an element of optimism and confidence into the company as well.
Absolutely. And I think I heard something the other day. It's a victory log. So instead of doing a to-do list and crossing stuff off, write down the small things that you've accomplished either on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. And once I started doing that, I could look back and be like, oh, okay, any day I had where I felt either overwhelmed or like I wasn't making any progress or I was just spinning my wheels, I could look at this thing and be like, oh my goodness, look at all the stuff I've actually accomplished. And it reinvigorated my resolve to go after what I was trying to accomplish. I love that. That's a very important thing. And I think if more companies did something like that, where if you have a weekly meeting with your team, have them list a few of the things that they've accomplished, that they actually achieved over the past few days, I think that's a great idea. I think it would keep people not only committed to their role, but it would keep them engaged in their day-to-day activities as a whole. That's great. So
I think it's important because even as parents, we want our children to succeed, and sometimes we forget to acknowledge the things that they do right. We just want to continue to, I don't know, somebody said a child hears the word no like 50 times more than yes every day during its first 5 years of life. And that needs to change. We need to celebrate our children and help them celebrate the small things that they do that are right, because that helps build their self-confidence. And it's something that we as parents can focus on, because we want our kids to be confident and self-assured. And a part of it is remembering and to ask, not tell. Ask a child, because when you ask a child a question, it triggers their creativity and their entrepreneurial spirit.
No, and I love that. It's funny. I think back. So my brother and me, we're very close. We have children about the same age, and he lives just down the street over here. And I love hanging out with him. And the other day I saw him do something where his son was supposed to be sitting at the table eating, but he got up from the picnic table and he ran over to the slide and he climbed up and he sat down and he slid down the slide. And my brother stood up and walked over to him. And his son's name is Jackson. He goes, "Hey, Jackson, it's lunchtime, so we need to be sitting down. But I want to let you know, you rode that slide really well. You walked up and you sat down just like you were supposed to. That was great. Now it's time to go have lunch." And I realized that he used it as an opportunity to encourage his son and still got him to come back to the table. And by encouraging them in that moment, he's more likely to follow you back to the table. Mm-hmm. And it applies directly, I think, to business as well, where if managers and leaders within an organization can come up to their team and just usually they're just focused on what are the problems that I need to fix, right? Because every manager talks about, I got to put out a bunch of fires. So they're looking for the fires to go put out. But if we spend just a moment praising a team member for something they've been doing correctly or that they've done very well, they're more likely to follow you as the leader back to, well, I'll say the picnic table, right? Or back into the business where they need to work. I love that. That's a great analogy.
Well, and the other thing is, as a leader, one of the things that my team all know, that I'm here to hear any problem, but when you bring a problem in, bring your suggested solution. And that shows trust in the people that you work with, the people on your team. Trust that they recognize there's a problem and they've thought about it enough to figure out a potential solution. It may not be what you decide to do, but at least you're showing that trust and faith in them, and that they're bringing something to you and saying, this has happened, I don't know what to do about it, but I'm thinking maybe this or that. And then you can have a dialogue and a suggestion, and they feel more invested in the outcome.
Absolutely. And now they have some sort of accountability and responsibility within that. I had a client recently and you'll like this, a client recently that he's at a C-level within his organization running their operations on a day-to-day basis, but everybody's constantly bringing him these problems, right? The trucks were late showing up for this, or this employee's not doing that correctly. And he's constantly piled up with all the monkeys, right? They call them the monkeys, but he's piled up with all these problems. And so what we ended up doing with him is like, look, from here on out, tell every single person that reports to you, that comes to you, to bring 3 solutions. That's it. Doesn't have to be great solutions, but they need to think through 3 different ideas that would solve this problem, right? And so once he started doing that, these people felt not only like they were allowed to take initiative and solve these problems themselves, it's opened up his time immensely, because now he's not having to do all this busy work of solving problems that other people could have done. And now he sees his team is more invested in what they're trying to accomplish. It's great. The solutions over problems is a phenomenal doctrine within any organization. I would totally agree with
well, a lot of times they're just afraid of what the reaction is going to be if they take it, if it's not in their job description and they do something, will they get in trouble? And so giving them permission to handle it if they can, or at least bring you solutions, shows trust in who they are and what they do.
It really does. And I think that builds a much more cohesive and a much closer team. It really does. Well, fantastic. What do you think is the biggest struggle that people are going to be facing in the next 5 to 10 years inside the workplace, right? As an individual, right? As a person, what is the biggest struggle you see the populace being faced with?
Well, certainly given my background, I think the biggest struggle always is individuals having financial stability. You can't be, you as an employer or as a CEO or a C-suite employee, if your employees are worried about their truck or car being repossessed in the parking lot, they're not going to be present 100% dedicated to your business. And so being able to recognize that by providing financial education to your employees, you're actually helping yourself and your bottom line, helping them get stable and understand the need, because money is a life skill. It doesn't matter whether you're the janitor, the CEO, or an entrepreneur, we'll have to deal with it. We're not being taught about it in school. And so the greatest gift you can give someone, whether it's your child, your brother, your sister, your employee, is the gift of financial education, so that people can become masters of their money. Because if they're not masters of their money, they're slaves to it. And if they're slaves to their money, then they're not 100% productive and effective in their position. And so give them the opportunity to stand on their own 2 feet and get more financially secure.
No, I think that is definitely one of the largest problems that the world is faced with right now. Is too few people understand money itself and how to make sure that they're secure in what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And you're very right. I think you have employees that have all these sort of external problems and issues and things going on in their life, and they bring all of that with them as baggage into the workplace. And so when you need them to be gregarious and outgoing and really be working on some of the stuff you need them to, their minds are wandering back to the problems that they're faced with. I totally agree with that. When is the right time to introduce some sort of financial conversation? It's probably, when they're kids, right? At like 4 or 5 years old, I would imagine.
I was going to say, how old do you think it is before a child knows the difference between a $1 bill and a $20 bill?
That's a good question.
3 or 4 or 5, they know the difference. And so they understand the spending power, but they don't necessarily understand the earning power. And so you can start having those conversations. Obviously, you don't go in depth when they're that young, but getting them to understand the power of money and the fact that, that the money just doesn't come out of the machine at the bank. You have to make sure it's in there first. And you do that because mommy and daddy have to go to work and work all day. And, or we start our own business and we're working, and we may have to be a little late tonight because we're earning money that's going to help us, protect the family in the future. All of those things are conversations that you should be having all along.
Well, and those are the I'm starting those conversations. I have a almost 4-year-old, right? So he's just a little over 3.5, and he's on commission. So if he helps pick up toys, he loves to sweep. It's actually dirtier when he's done, but he's trying. And so he earns commission for those things. And the funny thing is he knows about saving, and then he asks if he can spend it. And the only thing he wants to do is the weirdest thing. And you're just going to laugh, because he loves to garden. He loves planting seeds in our garden and growing tomatoes and basil. Wow. He just wants to go and take like 30 cents from his piggy bank up to the dollar store to buy seeds so that he can buy seeds for the garden. But you know what? If that's what he wants to spend it on, he earned the money.
That's creation. That's creation. That's great.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. So if there was one final thought that you could kind of hand to every individual that's watching this right now, what would you leave them with, Sharon? What would be the big aha or the big, I guess, idea that you want people to digest and carry with them?
Well, one of the biggest issues related to the Play Big movement, as I say, is being number one in your field, living your legacy, and creating maximum impact. But as part of that is the underlying financial stability. And so much of our lives, we're worried about our income. What's our income? What's my salary? But if I can get you to shift your concept from not how much money I'm making, but how many assets am I building, creating, and buying that generate income. If we can start focusing on assets that generate income, then we start taking the responsibility and lessening what we have to do. Instead of worrying about our time creating money, our assets start creating money. Every time you buy, build, or create an asset, it becomes your employee in your personal financial statement. And that's what every wealthy individual in the world has done. They focus on assets, not income. And so that's the shift that everybody needs to make to be able to create infinite wealth and financial freedom.
No, that is a great thing. And here's the thing: I think too many people are concerned about getting the car now or getting these objects now, and we're too concerned on buying material things instead of thinking about what can I do to materialize more income from the money that I've made. I think you're totally right. And to circle back around to playing big, I heard a quote recently, and it's, if you're thinking about solving a problem that can be solved within your lifetime, you're thinking too small. Pretty good, huh? All right. Well, I just want to thank you again, Sharon. It's been an honor and a privilege to have you on my show. It really has.
Well, thank you so much. I invite everybody to join me. I've got a private Facebook page called the Play Big Movement with Sharon Lechter. I invite all of you to join that, as well as you can find me on Instagram and Facebook, LinkedIn, Sharon Lechter. So I would welcome all of you to come join us on the Play Big Movement.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening today, and make sure you check her out. It's SharonLechter.com, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. And make sure you check her out. She's got some phenomenal stuff. And if you haven't read any of the books that she's worked on, you must have been under a rock, because they're phenomenal. And you're just wonderful. Thank you again. And if y'all want to check me out, y'all know where to find me. It's JoshuaMEvans.com, or hit me up on any social media @EnthusiasticU. And thank you again for joining my show. We'll see y'all next week.